Imagine risking your life every single day for 10 months straight. Imagine skipping medication that keeps your body functioning, watching your health deteriorate, hiding the truth from everyone you love, all to save $2,800. Now imagine finally achieving that goal, giving your child the gift of their dreams, only to watch it destroyed in minutes by someone else's undisciplined children while their mother laughs it off as no big deal. This is not a fictional drama. This is the true story of Linda Morrison, a 52-year-old diabetic widow from Phoenix, Arizona, who made a choice that could have killed her to give her daughter a chance at her dreams. What would you do if you were Linda? Would you risk everything for your child? And what would you do if your own family destroyed that sacrifice without remorse? Stay with us, because this story will challenge everything you think you know about maternal love, family boundaries, and the price of dreams. Linda Morrison had learned to live with limitations. At 52 years old, she had been managing type 2 diabetes for nearly 8 years, ever since her husband David died unexpectedly from a heart attack. David had been the primary breadwinner, working as an electrician. When he passed, Linda was left with their 16-year-old daughter Rebecca, a modest life insurance payout that barely covered funeral expenses and outstanding debts, and a job as a receptionist at a veterinary clinic in central Phoenix that paid $32,000 a year before taxes. It was not much, but Linda had made it work. She was resourceful, careful with money, and determined to give Rebecca as normal a life as possible despite their circumstances. Their home was a small 2-bedroom apartment in a lower middle-class neighborhood near Thomas Road, one of the older areas of Phoenix, where the buildings had character but definitely showed their age. The summer heat was brutal, often reaching 115 degrees, and their ancient air conditioning unit struggled to keep the apartment below 85 inside. But it was home. Linda had decorated modestly with second-hand furniture and plants she nurtured carefully because they brought life into their small space. Rebecca's bedroom was tiny, barely large enough for a bed, a small desk, and a narrow closet. But the girl had never complained. Not once. Rebecca had always been different from other teenagers. While her classmates obsessed over social media, dating, and fashion trends, Rebecca obsessed over creating fashion. She had discovered sewing at age 11 when Linda's mother, Rebecca's grandmother, had taught her basic stitches on an old Singer machine from the 1970s. What started as simple hemming projects quickly evolved into something extraordinary. By 13, Rebecca was drafting her own patterns. By 14, she was creating original dresses that looked professionally made. By 15, she had a small portfolio of designs that demonstrated genuine artistic vision and technical skill far beyond her years. Rebecca's talent had not gone unnoticed. Her high school offered a vocational program in fashion design and textile arts, a competitive program that only accepted 15 students per year from across the district. In the spring of her sophomore year, Rebecca had applied with a portfolio of 12 original pieces she had created over 2 years. The selection committee had been stunned. They accepted her immediately and told Linda that Rebecca had the potential for a real career in fashion design if she continued developing her skills. But there was a requirement. Students in the program needed professional-grade equipment because they would be working on projects that demanded precision and advanced techniques that basic home machines simply could not handle. The program coordinator had recommended several machine models, but one stood out as the gold standard for serious design students: the Bernina 790 Plus. It was a computerized sewing and embroidery machine that offered over 1,000 different stitch patterns, an integrated embroidery module, a high-resolution touchscreen interface, automatic thread tension adjustment, and precision that allowed for complex professional quality work. It was in many ways more like a sophisticated computer than a traditional sewing machine, Fashion design schools and professional studios use Bernina machines, and it cost $2,800. When the program coordinator had mentioned the price, Linda had felt her stomach drop. $2,800 might as well have been $28,000. After paying rent, utilities, groceries, car insurance, gas, and her own medical expenses, Linda had maybe $50 left at the end of each month if she was lucky. Sometimes nothing. Sometimes she went into her overdraft just to make it to the next paycheck. Saving $2,800 through normal means would take years, and Rebecca needed the machine by the start of her junior year if she wanted to stay in the program and keep up with the curriculum. Linda had sat at her kitchen table that night after Rebecca had gone to bed, staring at her bills and bank statements, feeling the weight of impossibility pressing down on her. She wanted so desperately to give her daughter this opportunity. Rebecca had lost her father. She had lived through years of financial struggle without complaint. She had a genuine gift, a talent that could change her life, lift her out of the cycle of paycheck to paycheck survival that Linda knew all too well. This machine could be the key to scholarships, to design school, to a career where Rebecca would never have to worry about making rent. But Linda simply did not have the money. Then Linda looked at the pill bottles lined up on her kitchen counter. 3 different medications for her diabetes, metformin for blood sugar control, glipizide to help her pancreas produce insulin, and the expensive one, the one that really hurt her budget, insulin injections. Together, these medications cost $350 per month, even with her basic health insurance coverage. $350 every single month for years. Linda did the math. If she could reduce her medication expenses by even $200 per month, she could save $2,400 in a year. Add in some extra overtime at work, maybe skip some of her own expenses, and she could reach $2,800 in 10 months, just in time for Rebecca's junior year. The question was whether she could survive doing it. Linda knew what diabetes medication did. It kept her blood sugar stable. It prevented long-term damage to her kidneys, her eyes, her heart, her nervous system. Without proper medication, diabetics risked neuropathy, blindness, kidney failure, heart attacks, strokes, even diabetic coma and death. She had sat through enough doctor appointments to know the risks. But she also knew that she was relatively healthy for a diabetic. Her last A1C test had been 7.2, not perfect but not terrible. She was disciplined with her diet. She walked regularly. She had lost weight after David died, partly from stress, but also from being more careful about food. Maybe, just maybe, she could reduce her medication intake temporarily, manage her blood sugar through extreme diet control, and get through 10 months without serious complications. It was risky, it was possibly stupid, but it was the only option she could see that would get her daughter that machine in time. Linda made the decision that night. She did not tell Rebecca. She did not tell anyone. She simply started taking her medications less frequently. Instead of her prescribed insulin dose twice daily, she took it once daily. Instead of taking her metformin 3 times a day, she took it twice. She stretched her prescriptions, refilling them half as often, pocketing the money she would have spent. She told her doctor's office she was doing fine and skipped follow-up appointments to avoid blood work that would reveal what she was doing. And she began saving every dollar she could. The first month was not so bad. Linda felt more tired than usual, but she attributed it to work stress and the Phoenix summer heat. By the second month, she was experiencing constant thirst and needing to urinate frequently, classic symptoms of elevated blood sugar. She bought cheap bottled water in bulk and carried it everywhere, drinking constantly. By the third month, her vision began getting blurry periodically, especially at night. She started having trouble reading small print and needed to squint when driving after dark. By the 4th month, she noticed tingling in her feet, the early stages of diabetic neuropathy. but she pushed through. She hid it all from Rebecca, making excuses, claiming she was just tired from work or getting older. Linda kept the money in a coffee can in the back of her kitchen cupboard, adding to it carefully every 2 weeks when she got paid. $200, $400, $700, $1,000. She watched the numbers grow with a mixture of pride and fear. She was making progress toward her goal, but she was also making progress toward potential disaster. By the 6th month, Linda's body was screaming at her to stop. She had lost 12 pounds, not from healthy diet and exercise, but from her body literally wasting away because it could not properly process nutrients without adequate insulin. Her clothes hung loose on her frame. Colleagues at work asked if she was sick. She lied, saying she had started a new diet plan and was feeling great. In truth, she felt terrible almost all the time. She woke up every morning with a splitting headache from elevated blood sugar. Her mouth was constantly dry, no matter how much water she drank. Small cuts and scrapes on her hands took weeks to heal instead of days. Her feet tingled constantly, and sometimes she had shooting pains up her calves that made her gasp. One morning in her 7th month of reduced medication, Linda woke up and could not see clearly out of her left eye. Everything was blurred as if she were looking through frosted glass. Panic seized her. She knew this was a sign of diabetic retinopathy, damage to the blood vessels in the retina caused by prolonged high blood sugar. If it progressed, she could lose vision permanently. Linda sat on the edge of her bed, trembling, considering whether she should go to the emergency room. But going to the ER would mean blood work, questions, doctors discovering what she'd been doing. They would lecture her, possibly report her to social services for medical neglect, and she would have to use her savings to pay the ER bill and resume full medication, which meant no machine for Rebecca. Linda made a decision that terrified her. She increased her insulin slightly, just enough to bring her blood sugar down to safer levels, and prayed that her vision would clear. Over the next 3 days, it did. Slowly, the cloudiness receded. She could see again, but the incident had shaken her deeply. She realized she was playing a dangerous game with her life. Still, she continued. The coffee can in her cupboard now held $1,800. She was so close, just a few more months. In her 8th month, Linda had another crisis. She was at work, sitting at the reception desk, answering phones, when suddenly the room began spinning violently. She felt nauseated, clammy, and disoriented. Her heart was racing. She managed to excuse herself to the bathroom where she sat on the floor, head between her knees, trying not to pass out. She checked her blood sugar with her portable monitor, something she had been avoiding because she did not want to see the numbers. The reading came back at 420 milligrams per deciliter. Normal fasting blood sugar should be below 100. She was more than 4 times the safe level. At this level, she was at risk for diabetic ketoacidosis, a potentially fatal condition where the blood becomes too acidic. Linda forced herself to drink water, took an extra dose of insulin that she had been hoarding, and waited in that bathroom stall for 30 minutes until the dizziness subsided enough for her to stand. She returned to work pale and shaking, telling her supervisor she had food poisoning. She finished her shift through sheer willpower and drove home in a fog of exhaustion. That night, Rebecca asked if she was okay. Linda smiled and lied again, saying she was fine, just a stomach bug. Rebecca, trusting and concerned, made her mother tea and brought her crackers. Linda felt like the worst mother in the world, lying to this sweet girl who had no idea that her mother was slowly killing herself in secret. But Linda also felt determined, because that night she counted the money in the coffee can again. $2,200. She was almost there. Just 2 more months. She could do this. She had to do this. Rebecca's future was worth the risk. The 9th and 10th months were a blur of suffering and determination. Linda existed in a constant state of discomfort. Her feet hurt all the time now. Her vision wavered unpredictably. She had developed a persistent yeast infection, another common complication of uncontrolled diabetes. She had lost more weight and looked gaunt. Her mother had called, concerned, saying Linda looked sick and needed to see a doctor. Linda had brushed off the concern, claiming she was just working too hard. She avoided mirrors because she did not want to see what she looked like. She avoided thinking about the long-term damage she might be causing. She focused only on the goal. In late August, 10 months after she had started her dangerous plan, Linda counted the money in the coffee can one final time. $2,840. She had done it. Against all odds, against her body's protests, against medical advice she had deliberately ignored, she had saved enough money to buy the Bernina 790 Plus. Linda sat at her kitchen table and cried, not from joy, but from exhaustion and relief that this ordeal was finally over. She could resume her normal medication now. She could start taking care of herself again. She could give Rebecca her gift. Linda ordered the machine online from an authorized Bernina dealer, selecting expedited shipping. The machine arrived 4 days later in an enormous box that weighed over 50 pounds. Linda had it delivered to her workplace so Rebecca would not see it at home. She arranged for her supervisor to let her store it in the office storage room until Rebecca's birthday in 2 weeks. Linda could barely contain her excitement. Every time she looked at that box, she felt pride mixed with the physical pain that had become her constant companion. She had sacrificed her health, possibly shortened her life, all for this moment. It had to be worth it. Rebecca's 17th birthday fell on a Saturday in early September, one of those Phoenix days where the temperature hit 108 degrees by noon, and the asphalt outside shimmered with heat waves. Linda had planned a small, simple celebration at their apartment. Just Rebecca, her best friend Emma, and Linda's younger sister Patricia, with Patricia's 3 children. Linda had considered not inviting Patricia at all because their relationship had always been complicated, strained by old resentments and unspoken competition that dated back to their childhood. But Patricia was family, and Rebecca liked her aunt despite everything, so Linda extended the invitation. Patricia was 4 years younger than Linda, 48 years old, and had always lived in Linda's shadow, growing up. Where Linda had been the responsible older sister, Patricia had been wild and impulsive. Where Linda had married young and built a stable life, Patricia had cycled through unstable relationships and questionable decisions. Patricia now lived in a small rental house in Glendale with her 3 children from 2 different fathers, neither of whom were actively involved in the kids' lives. Patricia worked sporadically as a waitress and relied heavily on government assistance and child support payments that rarely came. Her children were Aiden, age 9, Mason, age 7, and Chloe, age 5. All 3 were undisciplined, loud, and often destructive because Patricia had never believed in setting boundaries or enforcing consequences. Linda had always tried to be patient with Patricia despite everything. She understood that Patricia's life was difficult, that single motherhood was exhausting, that poverty and stress could make parenting harder. But Linda also recognized that Patricia made excuses for her children's behavior rather than correcting it, and that created problems for everyone around them. Still, family was family. Linda hoped that today would be pleasant, that Patricia's kids would behave reasonably well, and that Rebecca could enjoy her birthday without drama. Linda had spent the morning decorating their small living room with streamers and balloons in Rebecca's favorite colors, purple and silver. She had baked a vanilla cake with chocolate frosting from scratch because Rebecca had always preferred homemade cake to store-bought. She had ordered pizza from Rebecca's favorite local place, nothing fancy but something the birthday girl enjoyed. And most importantly, she had set up the Bernina 790 Plus in Rebecca's small bedroom, carefully unboxing it and placing it on Rebecca's desk, covering it with a sheet so it would be a surprise. The machine was massive, taking up most of the desk space, but it looked magnificent even hidden under fabric. Patricia arrived late as usual at 2:30 in the afternoon when the party was supposed to start at 2. She pulled up in her beat-up sedan that made concerning rattling noises, and her 3 children exploded out of the car like small tornadoes. Aidan and Mason immediately started roughhousing in the apartment complex parking lot while Chloe whined about being hungry. Patricia looked tired, wearing wrinkled jeans and a faded t-shirt, carrying a small gift bag that clearly contained something inexpensive. She hugged Linda quickly, complimented the decorations with a tone that sounded slightly sarcastic, and then collapsed onto Linda's couch, announcing she was exhausted. Rebecca and Emma were in Rebecca's room talking about the upcoming school year when the guests arrived. Linda called them out, and they emerged smiling. Rebecca hugged her aunt politely and said hello to her cousins, who largely ignored her in favor of exploring the apartment and touching everything they could reach. Linda served pizza on paper plates, and everyone gathered in the living room to eat. The kids ate quickly and messily, getting sauce on Linda's couch despite Linda's efforts to make them use napkins. Patricia ate while scrolling through her phone, barely participating in conversation. After pizza came the cake. Linda brought it out with 17 candles flickering brightly. Everyone sang happy birthday, slightly off-key. Rebecca smiled, that beautiful, genuine smile that made Linda's heart swell with love. Rebecca closed her eyes, made a wish, and blew out all the candles successfully. They ate cake, and then it was time for presents. Emma gave Rebecca a gift card to a fabric store, which Rebecca loved. Patricia handed over her small gift bag, which contained a cheap makeup palette from a drugstore. Rebecca thanked her aunt politely, though Linda could tell her daughter was underwhelmed. Then Linda stood up. "I have one more gift for you, sweetheart. It's in your room. Close your eyes." Rebecca looked confused but played along, closing her eyes while Linda took her hand and led her down the short hallway to her bedroom. Emma followed, excited. Patricia stayed on the couch, and her children scattered throughout the apartment. Linda positioned Rebecca in front of the covered machine and told her to open her eyes. Then Linda dramatically pulled the sheet away, revealing the stunning Bernina 790 Plus in all its technological glory. Rebecca's reaction was everything Linda had hoped for. Her daughter's eyes went wide, her hands flew to her mouth, and tears immediately began streaming down her face. She stood frozen for several seconds, just staring at the machine as if it might disappear if she looked away. Then she turned to Linda and threw her arms around her mother's neck, sobbing with joy. "Mom, how? How did you afford this? This is the exact one. This is the professional model. Mom, this is amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you." Rebecca was shaking with emotion, and Linda held her tight, tears forming in her own eyes. This moment, this pure joy, made every needle stick, every dizzy spell, every risk worth it. Rebecca pulled away and immediately began examining the machine like a kid on Christmas morning. She ran her fingers over the touchscreen, explored the embroidery module, read aloud about the features from the Quick Start Guide. Emma was equally impressed, asking questions about what the machine could do. Rebecca explained with the expertise of someone who had researched this equipment obsessively for months. She demonstrated how the automatic needle threader worked, how you could load custom designs via USB, how the machine could create intricate embroidery patterns that would take hours to do by hand. Her enthusiasm was infectious and beautiful. Patricia appeared in the doorway, drawn by the commotion. She looked at the machine, and her expression shifted into something unpleasant. "Wow, Linda, that must have cost a fortune. I didn't know receptionists made that kind of money." The comment was passive-aggressive, dripping with thinly veiled resentment. Linda ignored it, refusing to let Patricia's jealousy poison this moment. Patricia continued. "I could never afford to spend that much on a hobby. Must be nice." Linda bit her tongue hard, reminding herself to stay calm, to not engage. Rebecca, oblivious to the tension, continued exploring her gift joyfully. After a few minutes, Rebecca wanted to take her machine for a test run, maybe sew something simple just to try it out. She started looking through her fabric scraps for a small project. That was when Linda noticed something alarming. Patricia's 3 children were no longer in the living room. She had heard them earlier, but now there was suspicious silence. Any parent knows that when young children go silent, trouble is brewing. Linda excused herself and went back down the hallway. Patricia remained in Rebecca's doorway, still staring at the sewing machine with that sour expression. Linda found Aidan and Mason in the apartment's second bathroom, Chloe watching from the doorway. They had emptied an entire bottle of hand soap into the toilet and were trying to flush it repeatedly, creating a mountain of bubbles. Linda's heart sank. She firmly told them to stop, guided them out of the bathroom, and spent 5 minutes cleaning up the mess while Patricia's children wandered back toward the living room. Linda was frustrated but trying to maintain her composure. This was Rebecca's day. She would not let Patricia's undisciplined children ruin it completely. But when Linda returned to Rebecca's bedroom a few moments later, she discovered a scene that would haunt her nightmares. Rebecca was standing in the middle of her room, frozen in shock, staring down at her new sewing machine. Emma had her hands over her mouth. Patricia was in the doorway with a strange expression on her face, something between alarm and nervous amusement. And there, on Rebecca's desk, was the Bernina 790 Plus, with its power cord severed into 3 separate pieces. Linda's brain could not immediately process what she was seeing. She stepped closer. The thick power cord, which connected the expensive machine to the electrical outlet, had been cut cleanly in multiple places with what appeared to be scissors. The copper wires inside were exposed. Around the machine were other casualties. Several yards of expensive fabric that Rebecca had been saving for months, now cut into random pieces. A pincushion knocked over with pins scattered everywhere, and on Rebecca's upholstered sewing chair, a large purple stain where someone had spilled grape juice. Aidan and Mason stood near the desk, Chloe behind them. Aidan was holding Rebecca's fabric scissors, large, sharp shears designed for cutting through multiple layers of cloth. Mason was smiling with that vacant expression children sometimes have when they know they have done something wrong but do not fully understand the consequences. Chloe was sucking her thumb, purple juice staining her lips and shirt. The silence in that room was deafening. Then Rebecca made a sound, a choked sob, and dropped to her knees. She picked up the severed pieces of the power cord with shaking hands, trying uselessly to fit them back together as if they could somehow be reconnected. Her tears fell onto the damaged cord. Emma moved to comfort her friend, but did not know what to say. Linda stood paralyzed, her mind racing through 1,000 thoughts at once. The cost of repair, the deliberate destruction, the cruelty of this moment. Patricia was the first to speak, and her words were gasoline on a fire. "Oh no! Boys, what did you do?" Her tone was light, almost sing-song, the tone of someone mildly inconvenienced rather than genuinely upset. Then she laughed nervously, that awful laugh she always made when her children misbehaved. "They were just curious about the machine, Linda. They didn't mean any harm. Kids will be kids, right?" Something inside Linda shattered. A dam broke. All the pain of the last 10 months, all the suffering she had endured in silence, all the fear and sacrifice and medical risk came flooding out in a wave of pure rage. Her voice, when it emerged, was louder than she had ever heard it. "Kids will be kids. Kids will be kids. Patricia, they destroyed a $2,800 machine. They destroyed my daughter's birthday present. They destroyed her dream." Patricia stepped back, startled by her sister's fury. "Linda, calm down. We can fix it. I'm sure you can buy a new cord or something. It's not that big a deal." "Not that big a deal?" Linda was screaming now, and she did not care who heard. Neighbors could call the police for all she cared. "Do you have any idea what I did to buy that machine? Do you have any idea?" Tears were streaming down Linda's face, her whole body shaking. "I stopped taking my diabetes medication for 10 months. 10 months. I risked my life, Patricia. I risked going blind, having a heart attack, going into a coma. I hid needle marks and lied to my daughter and nearly passed out at work because I was skipping insulin to save money. That is how I afforded this machine." The room went absolutely silent. Rebecca's head snapped up, her tear-stained face now showing horror instead of grief. "Mom, what? What did you just say?" Her voice was barely a whisper. Emma looked shocked. Even Patricia had gone pale. Linda was breathing hard, her secret now exposed in the worst possible way. She had not wanted Rebecca to ever know. The whole point had been to protect her daughter from guilt, to give her this gift without the weight of knowing what it cost. But the truth had erupted out of Linda like a volcanic explosion, impossible to contain. Rebecca stood up on shaky legs, the severed cord falling from her hands. "Mum, you stopped taking your medication? Your diabetes medication?" She was walking toward Linda now, her face showing anguish. "You have type 2 diabetes. You need that medication. You could die without it. Why would you do that? Why would you risk your life?" Linda was crying openly now, no longer able to maintain the facade of strength. "Because I wanted you to have this. Because you're so talented and you deserved this chance, and I didn't have any other way to afford it." Her voice broke. "I wanted to give you something good, baby, something that could change your future, and I thought I could manage it. I thought I'd be okay." Rebecca hugged her mother fiercely, both of them crying. "I would never have asked for this if I knew. Never. Mom, I don't care about the machine. I care about you. You're all I have left." The raw emotion in Rebecca's voice was heartbreaking. Emma was crying too, overwhelmed by the revelation. Patricia, meanwhile, was trying to process everything. She looked uncomfortable, embarrassed, but also defensive. "Linda, I'm sorry you did that to yourself, but that was your choice. My kids didn't know any of that. They're just children. It was an accident." Linda spun toward her sister with fury in her eyes. "An accident? Your 9-year-old son took scissors and deliberately cut the power cord in 3 places. He cut up expensive fabric. This wasn't curiosity gone wrong, Patricia. This was destruction, and it happened because you ignore your children. You let them run wild, touch everything, destroy things, and you never discipline them. You make excuses. You always make excuses." Patricia's face flushed red. "Don't you dare lecture me about parenting, Linda. I'm doing the best I can. Not everyone has it easy like you." "Easy like me?" Linda's laugh was bitter and hollow. "Easy? I'm a widow raising a teenager on $32,000 a year. I just told you I stopped taking life-saving medication to afford a sewing machine. What part of that sounds easy to you?" The argument was escalating, both sisters saying things they could not take back, when Rebecca's voice cut through the noise. "Please stop. Please, both of you, just stop." She was standing between them, tears still streaming down her face. She looked at her aunt and cousins with an expression of profound hurt. "Aunt Patricia, your kids destroyed something that mattered to me. And they destroyed something my mom almost died to give me. I don't care if they're children. What they did was wrong. And you should care." Patricia had no response. She stood there, mouth slightly open, clearly uncomfortable with being called out by her 17-year-old niece. Aidan and Mason looked uncertain now, sensing the gravity of the situation. Chloe had started crying because everyone else was upset. Linda's mother's voice, Dorothy, suddenly came from the doorway. Linda had not even realized her mother had arrived. She must have come in during the chaos. Dorothy looked at the scene, the destroyed machine, the crying birthday girl, the severed cord on the floor, and her face hardened with anger Linda rarely saw from her gentle mother. Dorothy pointed at Patricia. "Take your children and leave, right now." Patricia protested. "Mom, you can't be serious. This is being blown way out of proportion." "Patricia Ann, I said leave. What your children did was inexcusable, and your response has been even worse. Until you are willing to take responsibility, pay for the damage, and actually parent your children, you are not welcome here." Dorothy's voice was steel. Linda had never loved her mother more than in that moment. Patricia grabbed her children roughly by their arms, muttering under her breath about how everyone was overreacting and ganging up on her. She stormed out of the apartment, her kids in tow, slamming the door behind her hard enough to rattle the walls. The apartment fell silent, except for Rebecca's quiet crying. Linda held her daughter while Emma awkwardly tried to help, and Dorothy looked at the damaged machine with profound sadness. The hours after Patricia left were some of the most emotionally draining Linda had ever experienced. Rebecca refused to let her mother out of her sight, terrified that Linda's health would suddenly fail. Linda tried to reassure her daughter that she would be fine, that she would immediately resume her full medication regimen. But Rebecca was inconsolable with worry. Emma eventually called her parents to pick her up, the birthday celebration having turned into a nightmare no one could have predicted. Dorothy stayed, helping Linda assess the damage to the machine and trying to comfort both her daughter and granddaughter. The power cord was completely destroyed, cut in multiple places with exposed wiring that made the machine unsafe to plug in. Dorothy called a local sewing machine repair shop to ask about replacement cords. The technician explained that the Bernina 790 Plus used a proprietary cord that cost $180 to replace. However, the bigger concern was whether the sudden power interruption caused by cutting the cord while the machine was plugged in had damaged the sensitive electronics inside. The Bernina was essentially a sophisticated computer with motors and sensors. A power surge or improper disconnection could fry the motherboard, the LCD screen, the embroidery module, or other components. The technician recommended bringing the machine in for diagnostic testing, which would cost $75. If repairs were needed beyond the cord, costs could range from $400 to $800, depending on what was damaged, assuming the parts were even available. Linda sat at her kitchen table listening to her mother relay this information and felt completely defeated. She had nothing left, no savings, no energy, no hope. She had sacrificed her health for 10 months to buy this machine, and within hours it had been destroyed by undisciplined children whose mother refused to take responsibility. Linda put her head in her hands and just sat there, numb and exhausted. Rebecca appeared from her room, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She sat next to her mother and took her hand. "Mom, I need you to promise me something." Her voice was serious, more mature than Linda had ever heard it. "Promise me you'll go to the doctor. Promise me you'll get blood work done. Promise me you'll take your medication exactly as prescribed from now on. Promise me you'll never do anything like this again." Linda looked at her daughter's face, seeing the fear and love there, and felt ashamed of what she had put this girl through. "I promise, baby, I promise I'll take care of myself." "I don't care about the machine anymore," Rebecca said, though fresh tears were forming. "I care about you. You're my mom. You're all I have. I can't lose you, too." She was referring to her father, and the grief in her voice was palpable. They held each other for a long time, while Dorothy watched with tears in her own eyes. Eventually, practical matters had to be addressed. Linda called the repair shop and scheduled an appointment to bring the machine in on Monday. She also, at Rebecca and Dorothy's insistence, called her doctor's office and scheduled an emergency appointment for the following day, Sunday. explaining that she had been non-compliant with her medication and needed immediate evaluation. The receptionist sounded concerned and worked her into the schedule. That night, after Dorothy left and Rebecca finally went to bed emotionally exhausted, Linda sat alone in her dark living room thinking about everything that had happened. She felt angry at Patricia, angry at those children, angry at herself for making such a dangerous choice, angry at the universe for being so cruel, but underneath the anger was bone-deep exhaustion and a sense of failure. The next morning, Linda went to her doctor's appointment. The doctor, a middle-aged woman named Dr. Patel, who had been treating Linda for years, was visibly upset when Linda confessed what she had done. Dr. Patel ran comprehensive blood work immediately. Linda's A1C, which measured average blood sugar over 3 months, had gone from 7.2 to 10.8. Anything above 6.5 indicated diabetes. 10.8 was dangerously high. Her kidney function showed early signs of damage, indicated by elevated creatinine and reduced glomerular filtration rate. Her cholesterol had spiked. She had mild diabetic retinopathy visible in her eye exam. Dr. Patel was furious and frightened for her patient. "Linda, do you understand that you could have died? That you could have had a heart attack or a stroke or slipped into a diabetic coma? That you may have caused permanent damage to your kidneys and eyes?" Dr. Patel's voice was shaking with emotion. "I cannot express how dangerous and reckless this was. You are a smart woman. You knew better." Linda sat in the exam room, feeling like a scolded child, tears running down her face. "I just wanted to give my daughter something. I didn't have any other way." Dr. Patel softened slightly but remained firm. "I understand maternal love, Linda. I'm a mother too, but you cannot help your daughter if you're dead. Do you understand that? She needs you alive more than she needs any sewing machine." The doctor prescribed immediate aggressive treatment to bring Linda's blood sugar down and scheduled follow-up appointments to monitor her kidney function and eye health. She made Linda promise to take every medication exactly as prescribed and to never, ever do anything like this again. Linda promised. When Linda returned home with her new prescriptions, Rebecca was waiting anxiously. Linda sat her daughter down and explained the test results honestly, not sugarcoating the situation. She had caused damage, but Dr. Patel believed most of it could be reversed with proper treatment and compliance. Rebecca made her mother swear on her father's memory that she would never skip medication again. Linda swore. On Monday morning, Linda took the damaged Bernina to the repair shop. The technician, a man in his 60s who had worked with sewing machines his entire life, examined it carefully. After an hour of testing, he delivered bad news. The sudden power interruption when the cord was cut had caused an electrical surge that fried the main circuit board. The LCD touchscreen was also damaged, flickering erratically. The repair would cost $750, not including the new power cord. Total cost $930, and the parts would take 3 to 4 weeks to arrive because Bernina components had to be ordered from Switzerland. Linda felt her heart sink into her stomach. She did not have $930. She did not even have $93. She thanked the technician and left the machine there, saying she needed time to figure out how to pay for the repairs. She drove home in tears, feeling like the universe was determined to crush her. That evening, Rebecca made a decision without telling her mother first. She was part of several online sewing and fashion design communities on Facebook and Instagram, groups where hobbyists and professionals shared projects, advice, and support. Rebecca posted about what had happened. She did not exaggerate or embellish. She simply told the truth. Her mother, a diabetic widow, had sacrificed her health for 10 months to save money for a professional sewing machine. On Rebecca's birthday, her cousin's children had deliberately destroyed it. Her mother could not afford the repairs. Rebecca was not asking for money, just for advice on whether there were cheaper repair options or if the machine could be fixed DIY somehow. Within 2 hours, Rebecca's post had 50 comments. By the next morning, it had been shared to other sewing groups across Facebook. Professional seamstresses, quilters, fashion designers, costume makers, and hobbyists from across the country were reading about Linda's sacrifice and the destruction of the machine. The response was overwhelming. People were outraged at what had happened. They praised Linda's dedication. They condemned the children and their mother, and many offered to help. A woman named Margaret Weinstein, who owned a custom bridal shop in Scottsdale, a wealthy suburb of Phoenix, reached out directly to Rebecca via private message. Margaret explained that she had been sewing professionally for 35 years. She had built her business from nothing and understood the importance of having proper equipment. She also understood maternal sacrifice. Having raised 3 children as a single mother while building her company, Margaret offered to pay for the entire repair cost, all of it. She would contact the repair shop directly and cover the bill. Rebecca should not worry about money. Rebecca showed her mother the message, and Linda broke down, crying. She could not believe that a complete stranger would be so generous. She tried to refuse, feeling it was too much to accept, but Margaret insisted. She told Linda that the sewing community took care of its own, and that one day, when Rebecca became successful, she could pay it forward to another young designer who needed help. But Margaret was not the only one who wanted to help. Over the next few days, more than 30 people from various sewing groups reached out, offering to send fabric, thread, patterns, and other supplies to Rebecca to replace what had been destroyed. A woman in California sent a box of premium designer fabric worth over $200. A quilter in Texas sent spools of high-quality thread in every color imaginable. A costume designer in New York sent professional pattern-making tools and books. Rebecca's tiny bedroom began filling with packages, each one a gift from someone who believed in her talent and wanted to support her after such a cruel setback. Then, something even more remarkable happened. Someone at Bernina International, the Swiss company that manufactured the sewing machine, saw Rebecca's story circulating on social media. The American division of Bernina reached out to Rebecca directly via email. A representative explained that Bernina's core values included supporting young artists and designers. They were moved by Linda's sacrifice and horrified by the destruction. Bernina wanted to help. They would not only cover the repair cost completely, they would also send Rebecca a premium accessory kit for the 790 Plus, a collection of specialized presser feet, embroidery hoops, and tools worth over $600. Additionally, they invited Rebecca to participate in Bernina's Young Designer Program, an online mentorship initiative where professional designers taught techniques and provided guidance to talented students. When Rebecca received that email, she screamed with joy so loudly that Linda came running from the kitchen, thinking something was wrong. Rebecca showed her mother the email, and they both cried together, overwhelmed by the kindness of strangers who owed them nothing but chose to give anyway. The story continued to spread. A local Phoenix news station picked it up and did a segment about Linda's sacrifice and the community's response. The segment aired during the evening news, and suddenly thousands more people knew about what had happened. The news piece was shared online, and the story went even more viral. Linda's workplace was flooded with calls from people wanting to send money or gifts. Linda had to ask them to stop because she genuinely did not know what to do with so much generosity. She and Rebecca decided that any monetary donations beyond what they needed should be given to the American Diabetes Association in David's memory. Meanwhile, Patricia had been watching all of this unfold from the sidelines, growing increasingly uncomfortable. Friends and extended family members had seen the news story and social media posts. People Patricia knew were commenting about how terrible the situation was. Some people figured out through context clues that Patricia was the sister involved. She started receiving messages from people she had not heard from in years, asking if the story was about her kids. Patricia felt the weight of public judgment, and for perhaps the first time in her life, she could not dismiss or deflect it. Too many people knew, too many people were asking questions. One evening, 2 weeks after the birthday incident, Patricia called Linda. It was the first contact between them since Patricia had stormed out. The conversation started defensively, with Patricia complaining about being publicly humiliated and saying that people were messaging her, saying cruel things about her children. Linda listened coldly, offering no sympathy. Then Patricia's voice changed. It cracked slightly. She admitted quietly that maybe she had not been paying enough attention to her kids' behavior, that maybe she had been making excuses for too long, that maybe she had been a bad mother. It was not a full apology. Patricia was still defensive, still trying to partially blame circumstances and other people, but it was closer to accountability than Patricia had ever come. She told Linda that she had enrolled all 3 of her children in counseling through a community mental health program. She admitted that Aiden had been suspended from school twice in the past year for bullying, and that the school had threatened expulsion if his behavior did not improve. She confessed that she felt overwhelmed and did not know how to control her kids anymore. Linda listened but did not offer comfort. This was Patricia's problem to solve. At the end of the conversation, Patricia said she would pay Linda back for the machine. She did not have the money immediately, but she would send payments over the next few months. Linda told her flatly that the machine had been repaired through the kindness of strangers, since Patricia refused to take responsibility. But Patricia could still pay the $2,800 to reimburse what Linda had originally spent. Patricia agreed, though Linda suspected she would find excuses to delay or reduce payments. 3 weeks later, Patricia made the first transfer, $400. It was something at least. 4 weeks after the birthday disaster, Linda received a call from the repair shop. The Bernina was ready. All repairs had been completed. The machine worked perfectly, better than new, actually, because the technician had also performed routine maintenance and calibration while it was in the shop. Linda drove to pick it up, her heart pounding with anticipation. When she saw the machine sitting on the counter, looking pristine and whole, she felt overwhelming relief. She carefully loaded it into her car and drove home, calling Rebecca to tell her the good news. That evening, Linda and Rebecca set up the Bernina 790 Plus on Rebecca's desk once again. This time they installed it carefully, reverently, with an appreciation for how easily things could be lost. Rebecca plugged in the new power cord, turned on the machine, and watched the LCD screen light up perfectly. She ran her first test stitch, a simple straight line on scrap fabric, and the machine hummed smoothly and precisely. It worked. After everything, it worked. Rebecca hugged her mother tightly, both of them crying again, but this time from relief and gratitude. Over the following weeks, Rebecca threw herself into her fashion design program with renewed passion. She used the Bernina to create projects that amazed her instructors. She learned advanced techniques through the Bernina online mentorship program. She joined virtual workshops where professional designers critiqued her work and taught her industry secrets. Her talent, already evident, began flourishing in ways that would not have been possible without the machine and the connections it brought. Linda, meanwhile, focused on her health. She took every medication on schedule. She attended every doctor's appointment. She monitored her blood sugar religiously. Slowly, over months, her numbers began improving. Her A1C dropped from 10.8 to 8.1. Still not perfect, but moving in the right direction. Her kidney function stabilized. The early retinopathy in her eyes had not progressed. Dr. Patel was cautiously optimistic that with continued compliance, Linda could avoid permanent damage. But the doctor also warned that Linda had used up her margin for error. Any future lapses could be catastrophic. Rebecca kept her promise too. She never let her mother forget to take medication. She set alarms on her phone to remind Linda. She checked in constantly. She made sure her mother ate properly. The daughter had become, in some ways, the caretaker, and Linda accepted it with a mixture of guilt and gratitude. They had survived something terrible together, and it had changed their relationship. They were closer now, bonded by shared trauma and survival. 5 months after the incident, Rebecca completed her first major project in the fashion program. A complete outfit consisting of a tailored jacket, matching skirt, and custom-embroidered blouse. The design was sophisticated and professional, something that could have been sold in a boutique. Rebecca's instructor was so impressed that she submitted the piece to a regional fashion competition for high school students. Rebecca won first place and a $500 scholarship for her future education. When they announced her name at the awards ceremony, Rebecca dedicated the win to her mother, saying that none of it would have been possible without her sacrifice. Linda, sitting in the audience with Dorothy beside her, cried with pride. Rebecca took the $500 scholarship money and did something Linda did not expect. She used it to buy her mother a medical alert bracelet, the kind that diabetics wear with their information engraved in case of emergency. She also used part of it to prepare for one of Linda's upcoming doctor appointments. When Rebecca gave these gifts to her mother, she said simply, "You gave me my dream. Now I'm going to help protect yours, staying alive and healthy for a long time." It was one of the most mature and loving things anyone had ever done for Linda. The story of Linda and Rebecca eventually faded from social media and local news, replaced by newer stories and fresh outrage. But the impact lingered. Linda received occasional messages from people who had read about what happened, thanking her for being an example of maternal devotion or telling her their own stories of sacrifice. Rebecca continued receiving support from the sewing community, people checking in on her progress and offering encouragement. The machine sat on Rebecca's desk, a constant reminder of both the cruelty people were capable of and the extraordinary kindness that could emerge in response. Patricia made sporadic payments toward the $2,800 she owed. By the 1-year anniversary of the incident, she had paid back $1,600. Linda did not chase her for the rest. She had learned that some people would never fully take responsibility, and that was their burden to carry, not hers. Linda heard through Dorothy that Patricia's children were still struggling with behavioral issues despite counseling. Aiden had been expelled from his school and transferred to an alternative program. Linda felt a distant sadness for them, but no longer felt responsible for fixing Patricia's family. She had her own daughter to worry about, her own health to protect. One evening in late spring, almost exactly 1 year after that terrible birthday, Linda sat on the small balcony of their apartment, watching the sunset paint the Phoenix sky in shades of orange and purple. Rebecca came outside carrying 2 glasses of iced tea and sat beside her mother. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just being together. Then Rebecca spoke. "Mum, I got my acceptance letter today, from the Fashion Institute. Full scholarship for the first 2 years, based on my portfolio and competition wins." Her voice was quiet, but filled with emotion. Linda turned to look at her daughter, tears instantly forming. "Rebecca, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you." "I wouldn't have any of this without you," Rebecca said. "I know what you did was dangerous. I know it could have killed you. But I also know why you did it. And I want you to know that I'm going to make it worth it. I'm going to build something with this opportunity. I'm going to take care of you someday, the way you've taken care of me." Linda reached over and took her daughter's hand. "You already take care of me, baby, every single day." They sat together as the sun disappeared below the horizon. 2 women who had survived something that should have destroyed them, but somehow made them stronger. The sewing machine hummed softly from inside the apartment where Rebecca had left it running while working on her latest project. The sound was comforting now, a reminder that some things broken could be repaired, some sacrifices redeemed, and some stories, even the painful ones, could have hopeful endings. After hearing this entire story, what do you think? Was Linda heroic for sacrificing her health to give her daughter opportunity, or was she reckless for putting herself at such risk? Should Patricia have been held more accountable for her children's actions? What does this story teach us about the limits of sacrifice and the importance of boundaries? We want to hear your honest thoughts in the comments below. These conversations matter because they help us understand where the line is between love and self-destruction, between family loyalty and enabling bad behavior. If this story moved you, if it made you think about sacrifice, parenting, or the power of community support, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We share real stories that touch hearts and challenge us to think deeply about what really matters in life. And don't forget to watch the next recommended video, where we tell another incredible true story that will leave you thinking long after it ends. Thank you for watching, and remember, the greatest gifts we give our children are not things, but the examples we set and the love we show, even in our most difficult moments.